hata kwenye giza totoro, baby, nachohitaji ni uwepo wako na ni sawa. Would you let me Romeo, na kisha kuponi, yeah. Sikio shafunga kwa komeo, ya usisikie, mabaya wanasema unifai, wanasema yetu na halina kwenye mpenzi na imani, baby. Mabaya wanasema unifai, wanasema yetu na halina kwenye mpenzi na imani, baby. This kind of love, utakata kwa hela, this kind of love, utakata kwa sponsor, Ipora dinite, tekete, mama nite, tekete, kwa kubala thamani, kwa kubala thamani. Ipora dinite, tekete, mama nite, tekete, kwa kubala thamani, kwa kubala thamani. Mabaya wanasema unifai, wanasema yetu na halina, kwenye mpenzi na imani, baby. Mabaya wanasema unifai, wanasema yetu na halina, kwenye mpenzi na imani, baby. Utakata kwa hela, this kind of love, utakata kwa sponsor, this kind of love.
Right. So let's start this. Abok. Hi, Abok. All right. So maybe once Abok comes online, so we will be starting this conversation. So I want to welcome you all for tonight's conversation. Tonight we are talking about food security and especially opportunities that are available when it comes to export. So Mr. Abok, who is in this industry, is going to help us discuss about this conversation, especially now that we have some kind of crisis, and going forward, maybe we need to actually produce our own food as well as we look at markets outside our country. So that's basically the conversation that we'll be having tonight. So Abok, can you unmute your mic? All right. Maybe first, Abok, you can share about how you are surviving this quarantine season.
Yeah, good evening, Patrick. We are living in a very interesting times. Nobody thought maybe you'd be in like something like a prison in your house for this long.
Yeah.
And that's why you find maybe a lot of things have grown on our faces, so don't worry so much. It's not the way we are always.
True.
We
are like, now we have to survive. This is how it is going to be.
Yeah, this is how, you sometimes you even fear going to kinyozi because of the fears that were instilled in us by the ministry. So we just have to be.
Great. So maybe now, we can go to the details of this conversation tonight. This is a very interesting conversation because especially young people, we have been looking at opportunities. When we talk about export, we have talked about AGOA. We have talked how can we actually sell products outside the country. That has been always the question. And again, there's been always people who are in the middle I think you have been seeing middlemen, how they maybe take this chance to hoodwink Kenyans. Yeah, maybe now we want to look at the channels, the right channels, when we are producing the logistics part, and then how it gets to the right market. Maybe when we talk with other countries, or when we talk people who come maybe from Europe, Asia, and other countries, actually they tell us they buy maybe produce from Kenya very expensive in their own country. But the question has always been, how do we get our products to those countries? Yeah, that's been the question. But I don't want to preempt
Interesting.
this conversation. Maybe first I want you to introduce yourself, and then you tell us about your own life journey, your own story, and your challenges. After that, we get to the details of the conversation.
Wow, very interesting, indeed. This topic is a topic that is familiar to everyone, because I believe everybody grew up from a farming family, and even if not a farming family, so many of us, I mean, everyone has to eat something, and therefore you have to recognize a farmer somewhere, as always. So let me start briefly with a brief introduction about myself. I was born, just like I told you, 35 years ago in a village called Kodera Forest in Oyugis, that is Homa Bay County. From there, I went to Nyambari Primary School. Those are strange names anyway. Nyambari Primary School. Then later on, I did my KCP. 20 years ago, I went to Ringa Boys High School, still within Homa Bay County. I didn't find the environment so good because of bullying and so many things, and therefore I left that school and I crossed all the way to Machakos, where I joined Mumbuni High School. From there, I did my KCSE. I didn't pass well enough to get me to that joint admission board. Actually, I missed by 1 point. So we discussed with my brother, and I had to cross over to Uganda to try my luck in higher education. I stayed there for slightly above 9 months, and I found the system not to be very favorable for me, because I could score distinction, and I realized, maybe I am not fit for this particular system. So I had to seek for credit transfer back to Kenya, and I joined Kenyatta University for 1 semester, and I realized that the course I joined had been scrapped by higher education board something, and I had to go to Egerton, and that is where I finished my studies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, great, amazing story. Seems that your journey was so mad with a lot of bumps and a lot of valleys and hills.
Yes.
So maybe I'm just maybe now you can go to the details of about now how did you maybe start your business, how you felt maybe this is the industry of agribusiness that you need, or did you get employed and then later you now went to business? How did it start?
Yeah. In the year 2013, I got employed by an organization. I think you saw me donning the T-shirt from that organization sometimes back in this discussion. And I worked for this organization for almost 9 months. But the 9 months I was working, I was only paid for 1 month. So I was basically working without pay. it was like I was volunteering, and I was in charge of agribusiness, and I could meet with clients. I was basically in charge of the projects that they were handling, and
Yeah.
I could see money getting in, but I'm not being paid. So there was a client who came towards maybe on around 8 months of my tenure there, and we negotiated the project up to implementation stage, but the management could not agree with the investor because they disagreed on the difference was only 6,000. They wanted 42,000 per session, and the client had 36,000 per session. And I saw this. He was a foreigner, and I saw him very dejected. And I followed him to the parking and asked him whether he would be interested in getting the services, but not from the company. And he agreed that what I need is the services, agronomic services. I need the expertise to enable my circle move from one level to another. And actually, that is where my journey started. I basically moved out with this particular client. I started offering him consultancy services. The place was very, very far. If you know Samburu, Maralal, and
Yeah.
I didn't have, I was not being paid, so I didn't even have money to get there. But we agreed with the gentleman. We signed the contract, and then the contract uh, was really good money for me because it was going for up to 12 sessions, and I was going to earn 36,000 per session. Yeah, and the session was only 2 hours because the community there uh, were like illiterate, some in some sort of. So there was no need of engaging them so much with a lot of words. So we agreed it's only going to be for 2 sessions, and thereafter, to cut the long story short, we signed the contract, and I started. I looked for a very eloquent veteran in the industry just to accompany me to go and boost my image so that I don't falter somewhere. So I went to this guy. We agreed out of the amount I was going to be paid for the session. We agreed. I was to pay him 10,000 per session. So I took him. I hired the vehicle. I took him. We went there, and for that day we combined 2 sessions. So the 8 months I worked, for that particular day, they gave me a check of 96,000 to come back with to Nairobi. You can imagine how happy I was. So from there is when I realized that it is possible, even outside of the employment setup, even to chart your way out here. That is not to mean that there are no challenges. I did this, and after the 12th session, now we were doing tomatoes in a 12-acre farm. A part of it was greenhouses, the tunnels that were covering up to 8 acres. So basically, they were they were doing they were doing medicinal herbs, but now they wanted just to get into horticulture farming. So after 12 session, we the produce was with us, and just like I'd promised them that I would help them find a market for their produce. So on my 10th session, the produce was almost ready, and they started asking me, what do we do with this particular produce? And on that particular day, I had a very small car, this Nissan Wing Road. So I told them, just just get me around six crates, and I will go with them to Nairobi. If I find market, I will come back and take the rest. And that is how the journey started. I went and registered an entity called Agri Services. It is still there. And I came back. I was staying in 5th floor in a bed sitter, and I had to carry all these crates and sleep with them in the house. The following day morning, all the tomatoes were ripe, and I didn't have the buyer then. So I had to think fast because I owed these people, and I had promised to send them money. So by around 3 p.m. the following day, I was stuck with them, but I had to think quickly. I looked at the area where I was, and I realized that that is the immediate market that I need to tap in before I can even think of Marikiti, uh, uh, City Park, all those open air markets. I looked for a Mukokoteni, and I looked for one guy, a drunkard, and we agreed. And he told me, before I start this job, I need to steam up myself. So I gave him 100 shillings, and he disappeared and came back after like 10 minutes. So my work was just to package the tomatoes, and he was making the noise and pulling the mukokoteni. So from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., I'd already sold all the produce, and within me, I had 24,000. I was lucky enough because that was the season when tomatoes were not really in the market. So when I went back, I just sent them the amount agreed, which was 9,000, because each crate was going for 1,500 shillings. So I sent them 9,000, and I had my 13,000. Now, a young man living in a bed sitter somewhere with 13,000 loose money. Now I had to get out, you know. Yeah. So from there, that is when my journey of finding market access, linking farmers, that is where actually it started.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So there's hope for Betsida guys. Eh? It's okay. I want to bring
Yeah.
Alphonse to this conversation. Maybe Alphonse, you can introduce yourself as we continue, maybe to hear a box story before we start the question.
How are you, Abok?
Hi, Alphonse. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm just excited with your story. These are the stories we need to be hearing every day. My name is Alphonse Were, and I'm lucky I did not get frustrated by job. At least that job side I came.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a chance to cross over the other side, but it's a story familiar, and I know it very well in my neighborhood and even in my own family. I don't know whom I am today. Ideally, what I do is I'm a labor policy consultant because I've studied labor. But the truth of the matter is that I came to Nairobi to study agriculture, and I actually studied agriculture. I have a degree in agriculture education and extension, and I've also done practice. I worked in a farm, or in farms, particularly processing, and therefore I'm very excited about this topic and just the fact that your situation, your story, your approach is very realistic and from the grass upwards.
Yes.
Okay.
So, thank you. So, Abok, you know, the most very important part young people want to hear. I got a call just during the day. Someone told me, a friend from Nakuru, she said, I have a big farm in Nakuru. How do I farm and get market? The issue is market. So young people actually they have maybe the land where they can farm. The issue here comes, where is the market? And maybe expatriate, when they come to this country, they actually look for market for farmers. That's how they bridge the gap, and that business has money. Maybe now tell us what does your company do, and how does it maybe bridge that gap before even we talk about product.
Yeah. Maybe to proceed with the story a little bit so that I can find a transition to your question.
Yes.
from that time, I did agribusiness management. So I'm not an agronomist, but I work with a team of agronomists. I think Alphonse understands that agronomy is a field of its own. So towards the end of the year 2014, I decided to engage fully in this particular practice. But the main challenge that I faced was I could work with agronomists. I give them, or I facilitate them. We work in farms. Then at the end of the day, the farmers paid me consultancy fees, and I don't have a market for them. So once the harvest is ready, they call you. Oh, do you know where I can sell all this produce? You know, you don't feel good when you have earned money from this particular person, but he's not going to earn money because he lacks a market. What our company was registered in 2014. We operated for almost 2 years. That's around 2015 September. We have to understand that seasons in farming, they fluctuate. Sometimes the market is so good, sometimes the market is badly infiltrated with the neighboring produce from Tanzania, produce from Uganda, and the Kenyan produce will always do very badly compared to the two countries, because our production cost is always higher. And you cannot convince Wekesa that this onion, you know, it is produced under these conditions, and therefore I'm selling it at 10 bob, while the Tanzanian one is selling at 5 shillings. So personally decided to diversify. And I opened other businesses just within the locality. So basically, I took all my savings back to a different type of business, because agribusiness, agriculture, all the markets were not that reliable. I could get produce from farmers, but I could sell and just get money enough to pay them, and not to get something. So in the year 2015 September, we lost our brother, and therefore when we went for burial and came back to Nairobi, I found the side business which had opened with the savings from farming. The premises was broken into and everything swept, and I had to start again from the scratch. So I went back to employment because I was looking for a way to survive. So that is the period when now this particular entity went into silence. The silence period was not that long. It took from 2015 up to 2017, when I said enough with employment. Let me go back to entrepreneurship. Let me go back to self-employment. And the areas where I've been employed, just in agribusiness field. I've never been employed out of agribusiness field. So I was gaining experience and developing network. So when I realized that it was time for me, I had to pull out in 2017 and develop and or concentrate in self-employment. Now, we realized that when you concentrate on local market, a lot of factors are bound to affect you. I've just explained some of them, like produce from neighboring countries, and I realized that I needed to up my game. I don't need to pull them Kokoteni again, but I need now to engage in a different level. I went to school, and therefore I needed to use my knowledge to make things work for me, and therefore we did not rebrand. The original one was Agri Prime Services, and we did not rebrand. We just changed into a different entity which we registered, which is actually taking the initials of my name, which is Bernard and Abok. So we have Benok Agriculture, and which is the umbrella name, but we have Benok Exporters Limited, which is now the entity which is dealing in terms of market access, both locally and across the border. We are end-to-end organization. End-to-end means from the cultural practices of land preparation, value chain analysis, up to the market. So when Patrick wants to farm, we don't come in at the market level because we understand what market wants. Now we take the outside in approach, where we take the market needs and bring it back to the farm level, so that what you are producing is what will sell in the market. So we are using this particular philosophy of producing what you can sell rather than selling what you can produce. So from there, when we engage from that level, we are involved in every stage of your farming process or your agribusiness venture. We are doing fresh fruits and vegetables, but we are so much into fruits, that is the avocado, the mangoes, and passion fruit. Vegetables, we don't do much of them because they are labor intensive, and again, the market is more or less fluctuating. So we didn't want to, because we are a bit younger, we didn't want to go fully into the whole value chain. So basically, Patrick, that is what we do, and Benok Agriculture, and we are based in Utawala, Nairobi. Yeah.
All right. Wow, amazing. So maybe the last part, I want to maybe you give us details before we get to the main questions of how maybe people can work with you or how they can get their products to the market, because maybe people will say, I can produce this product, but where will I sell this product? Maybe now tell us, as you see it, is there a market for products, especially now we are talking about fruits, which is like maybe avocado and others. Is there a market, especially maybe not locally? We can talk about overseas market, because I understand one avocado can go as much as 200 shillings.
Yeah, let me give you one particular motto that our lecturer would always tell us, that in case you want to get into farming, farm something that you can eat. And if you can eat it, possibly your neighbor can eat it. And if your neighbor can eat it, a community around you can eat it. And that is the basic entry level for anybody who would want to get into farming. Do not look at newspapers and articles that are saying, oh, snail farming, oh, I don't know, cricket farming. Those things can never be eaten by anybody in our neighborhood. And therefore, to go straight to answering your question, the market is around us. The market is you and I. The moment I produce something that you can consume, then I have already an existing market. There is a misconception that there is a huge market for fruits outside of the country. Yes, there is market, but the figures that you are quoting somehow may not be true. And even if they are true, they are justified. Number one, in agribusiness or in export business, there is a triangle. And this particular triangle has got production at the top of it. We have the market and logistics. You can have very beautiful produce. You can have very beautiful product at the farm level. If there is no connection from the farm to the market, that particular produce is useless. You can have a very well connected logistical system from the farm to the pack house. But from the pack house, if you don't have market, then your produce is useless. Your produce is useless. So these three things have to work in connection with each other. Now, when you talk about markets for the Kenyan produce, either locally or internationally, let me just concentrate on the foreign markets. For us, we sell in Middle East, that is the Qatar, Dubai. We are also trying our hands in the Gulf countries, where we have Bahrain and Kuwait. But 95% of Kenyan, not 95, but 90% of Kenyan avocados goes through Amsterdam. And that means Amsterdam is the gateway to other countries. You talk of Germany, talk of Belgium, talk of France, they pass through Amsterdam. And therefore, the market is there. What I want to dispel on in this particular program is the misconception about the Chinese market, which we were told, oh, the government signed a very big contract or an agreement to sell in a Chinese market.
Yeah.
For you to sell in a Chinese market, you need to have 11 certificates, 11 documents. And these 11 documents will take you through 54 steps. And these 54 steps will cost you money. And we cannot sell fresh fruits to Chinese market. We can only sell frozen avocados to Chinese market. If you want to sell to Chinese market as a fresh fruit, then it has to go either to which is this country, the neighboring countries to China. Then they change everything, packaging and even all documents, so that it is the origin is not from Kenya but from the South American countries that are our largest competitors. So yes, there is market, but not in China. In Kenya, there is only one company that has managed to get all the documents that is needed to penetrate the Chinese market. Only one out of over 200 exporters of fresh produce to the overseas markets.
All right,
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much, Abok, for that story. It's a really amazing, good story. We love this. Now, I want to get to now how we have this conversation. Maybe I'll ask the panel to ask you questions, but we can go step by step. Maybe we can start with the market, which many people are interested. Then we can go to the logistics part. Then we can go to production. But if anyone else wants to join this conversation, if you want to ask Abok any question, you are free to join or you are free to ask in the comment box. So maybe I can bring Alphonse. Wait, sorry, Alphonse. Let me bring Wekesa since he has not introduced himself. He introduces himself, and then you can ask questions. Now we can ask questions in the market, the topic about the market. Okay, Wekesa.
Yes. Hi, good people.
Yeah, happy.
Hi.
Yes, I'm Wekesa. Nothing has changed in the last 24 hours.
Okay.
I still stay in Masaku, and I'm specialist in sales and marketing. And Abok, let me add one thing. Abok is my friend, and most of the time we joke a lot until I forget some serious businesses. So today I will try to be serious. Huh?
Be serious.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Before I come to you, Alphonse, I will also want to introduce Dennis. Dennis then introduce himself, and then we can go to the questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis Oseko, and I'm glad to be here. let's go to the questions, and then I'll also have an opportunity to inquire more on what you're discussing about today.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so Alphonse, let's we can start with you. We go to Ekesa, we go to Dennis. The topic markets.
Yeah, I think my first question, I want to be brief in asking questions so that we get enough time for Abok to respond. Maybe Abok, tell us about the global gaps and the Euro gaps, and if there's any other gaps in China. And what a person who is new in the market or wants to start the business of farming for export should know.
Do I respond straight away?
Proceed, yeah.
Okay. When, of course, when we are telling a story, there are details that we don't say. And even if you are talking to a very close friend, there are things they will never tell you. And those are the things now you go back and think for yourself. In a global market, there are specific technical requirements or technical certificates that you are required of to have. And I want to start with even Kenyan market. There is a standard that has been developed, which is called Kenya Standard 1758, which is trying to look at issues of food safety, food security, looking at, basically food safety in terms of the pesticides, in terms of sanitation, in terms of the employees and everything that is trying to make sure that we consume safe produce. Today, and we can all agree that in Kenya today, we don't know where our produce or the mbogas we are taking or anything are coming from. We just go to the to Mama Mboga, just get me some onions, get me some tomatoes, but we don't know where they are coming from. So KS 1758 has been developed, and the implementation process is ongoing, so that whatever is getting either into supermarket shelves or into the local kiosk are safe for your consumption. That is number one. Process that you need to go through. Outside of the borders, each and every region will tell you exactly the kind of documents they need. When you talk of global gap is acceptable everywhere. That is globally. There are markets that are not even interested in knowing whether your produce is safe or not, and that is the Middle East market. It's more or less, it's an upgraded version of the Kenyan market, so they don't ask you anything. Whether you collect them from Ruai or whichever place and package them nicely and sell them, it's not an issue. The only sensitive area is Europe, where global gap is a must. And then on top of global, I'm going in the order of, let me just say, order of hierarchy, from the least to the most important. And the most important here are in terms of the benefits that you'll get when you have one document and when you don't have the other. Now, when you have global gap is a standard. Is the basic standard that is acceptable in the global market. For you to acquire these, you need to invest also. You need to invest in farm infrastructure. You need to invest in training of the workers at the farm level. That means you need to have ablution blocks. You need to have grading sheds. You need to have your farm well labeled. You need to have like something like soak pits where you dump off your chemicals or pesticides after spraying your farm. In terms of structures, you need to have a store. You need those those things at the farm level. Now, when you have them, for us, we'll come and do what is called shadow audit. But the Global Gap team, we have organizations that are certified to offer audit for Global Gap certification. After we have done shadow audits and confirm that you are well, now they are invited to come and do their audits so that now you can be given Global Gap certification. Now from Global Gap, you go to what is called GRASP. GRASP is Global Gap Risk Assessment for the employees and everything else. We understand that we want to make profit, but we don't want to invest in the labor force that we are using. And therefore, most of these organizations or most of the clients or most of the buyers are interested in knowing whether you are taking care of your employees and the things around their social welfare and everything else. So they cannot come when you don't have Global Gap because it is based on the Global Gap. So when you want to do GRASP, you need to have, for example, you need to be paying NHIF, NSSF for your employees. You need to be having let me just say, to some companies, they even pay school fees for the kids of their workers. Those basically the welfare and of the workers. Then we also have fair trade. Then we also have organic certification. Organic certification now. Let me just go back to GRASP. When you have GRASP, your pricing will be different from somebody who has got Global Gap. GRASP gives you maybe $1 more because they believe that what you are doing is noble to the community, and therefore it's part of that they're expecting you to get it back to the community. You can even do access roads within the community. You can even do dispensary or a small medical facility for the community. So they just want to assess whether you are doing it right. Now, organic is basically for those who are very keen on their health, and most of the European market, organic produce, organic products will always fetch higher and higher. The fact that it is a standard and it is a certification does not mean that we as Kenyan exporters or we as Kenyan consolidators are honest. Some of us just get the certificate for the sake of it and then start consolidating produce in the name of organic. But Alphonse, there are endless standards that require proof of certification that anybody who'd want to get into export market will only fit to a certain level. But with the time and with the experience, you can acquire even all of them if you have the muscle to get all of them, depending on the market you are targeting.
Yeah. Right. Now, the purpose of the question is what Patrick was raising, the issue of somebody who want to join, and most of these are small-scale farmers. Most of them have 1 acre, half an acre, 3 acres, 5 acres. Now, I know that there's a practice of big farms doing contract farming with small farmers if they meet standards. So I don't know what you can say about that, particularly for the small farmers and how they can join if they want to join the export market through that type of channel, and what they need to know even before they join that will give them an advantage when they are doing the bargain.
Okay, I would not encourage a small-scale farmer who has got maybe an acre or so to get into export market, because I can tell you, even this week, we met a client who requested us to give him 16 different documents. 16 different documents. Some of them you will spend time before even you get them. Now, when you meet the minimum requirements by a client overseas, Then now they give you what is called a production schedule. Production schedule, you will set what you can produce, what you can supply, for how long, and how you are going to supply it. The only access, the only way out for small-scale farmers are for them to come into groups or into cooperatives. Then the cooperative now can approach the market, but with that, then they'll be enjoying economies of scale. They'll be having that bargaining power. They'll be having that competitive advantage. So apart from being contracted by mainstream companies that have been there for long, small-scale farmers can join hands even at that very low level, and they can access that particular market provided they have a link to that particular market.
Right. Alphonse, you are okay. I think that we come down to another question. Let me just go to a question. That's interesting, but the takeaway there is for small scale farmers, for maybe young people, they have to come to groups or to form cooperatives to have a competitive advantage. All right.
Yeah.
So, Wekesa, maybe you can ask your question in that market topic.
Okay. I will have a general question first. Am I clear?
Yeah, very.
Okay.
You increase the volume, Wekesa.
I'm hearing some echoes.
Continue, Wekesa.
Okay. Yes. So I'm saying, I'm doing a general question, and the first one is we have always said that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. In your own assessment, are we still is agriculture still the backbone of our economy, or the back has been injured? And in terms of agriculture being the backbone of our economy, is it that we are producing what we can consume, and or we are producing what we can export such that we can earn enough foreign exchange, or we are ourselves an enough market that what we produce we can consume, and therefore, as we talk about agriculture being the backbone of our economy, it's because we are the market ourselves.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Wekesa. I would want to believe that the back has not been broken, and therefore agriculture is still the backbone of our economy. Looking at even brief statistics, out of the exports, agriculture contributes even up to 75% of the total exports, and therefore that gives you an indication that it is still the backbone. If you look at the employment level, 25% of the formal employment are in agriculture level. We have so many sectors, and therefore, if agriculture alone is contributing 25%, then it is still the backbone. A lot of things might have taken place right from 1970s to date. Maybe even the perception we had about agriculture has changed, and therefore questions like yours may arise because of such things. But I strongly believe that agriculture is still the backbone of our nation, not just Kenya alone, but the backbone of Africa economy. Then on your second question, which you are talking about, are we producing what we can consume, or we are producing maybe surplus or something like that? Remember, we are not talking about agriculture, but we are talking about agribusiness. And agribusiness, we are talking about farming that has been made to be a form of business. And therefore, we may produce things that we don't consume here, but are earning us foreign exchange in return. I want to say that because of the nature of farming that we are involved in, majority of the communities are still practicing subsistence farming, and that is why you realize that even today or the other day, you realize that the government would still want to import maize, not because we don't have enough maize, but looking at the whole value chain. Maybe I heard them talking about maize not fit for human consumption. I don't know whether that is true. We leave it for another time. But we can produce what enough for us to consume. And we are not selling surplus, by the way. We are only producing for that particular market. Even if we are left with the French beans that are being produced, we can't consume them because our culture, the cultural background, I don't know how long you take French beans in your meals. I don't know how long you take maybe avocados in your meal. Avocado is somehow common, but you look at others, maybe I can talk about snow peas, aubergines, you talk about baby corns, you talk of baby carrot. These are things outside of our consumption scope, and therefore we are producing for a specific market niche, and we have left the elderly to produce for us to consume locally. We have left the traditional agriculture for those who are above 60 years. And that's why sometimes we face hunger, we face food insecurity, because the business part of it is targeting the outside market, and no one is focusing on securing food for the country. Don't know whether I've answered you, Wekesa. Yeah.
Yeah, now on maybe on my supplementary question on the same. Now coming to the issues of food security. Now we are talking about leaving the subsistence farming for the elderly, and we are somehow agribusiness we are giving to a few intellectuals or elites who understand the market outside. So how do we balance that and bring in the issue of food security? Because the ones we have left to do the subsistence farming, sometimes they do it at their own, within their own confine of knowledge. But we are not even allowing the elites to do our own agricultural, what I call agricultural engineering, such that we can produce not just for our own consumption, but enough for us and even for export, because we cannot be having year in, year out the issues of shortage of maize when we are aware that our country can produce more than enough maize. And what is it that other countries are doing that they are able to have enough even maize for export to other countries when it comes to times of drought that Kenya is not doing? Is there a gap?
Okay. Wekesa, agriculture has been packaged all the years that we've known it to be either a job for those for school dropouts and the elderly. And we look at also the climatic conditions of our country. 80% of the Kenyan land is what is called ASAL, arid and semi-arid lands. And our farming system is based on rain-fed farming, which means we rely on rainfall. When it rains, like now it's raining, no one can go to the farm. And therefore, what we can expect in the next 3 or so months, increase in the prices of basic commodities. What we can expect is a shortage in agricultural commodities. I want to disagree with most of the campaigns that have been being carried on towards ensuring that even young people get into farming by maybe even cover or packaging farming as a cool. I mean, farming is cool. Farming is never cool. When they tell you that you can make farming is cool, soil has never changed to be a cool thing. It has remained to be a dirty work. And therefore, the moment we change our mentality, the moment we change our behavior and understand that there are no more job opportunities that can be created by other sectors, and we can go back to farming as young people, that is the time we shall have even surplus to sell for to other countries. Uh, yeah, young people should never look at farming as a get rich quick scheme. It has never been so, and therefore you'll always find a reason why it's only the elderly who are associated with farming, because they have developed that patience, they have developed resilience, and they know that it is not a 3-month thing, it is not a 6-month thing, it is an investment for a certain period of time. So for us to ensure that we have enough for our own consumption and even to take outside, there are a number of government policies that need to change. I would give you a good example of Kenyan onion versus Tanzanian onion. We had a client who wanted 40 tons of onions in Bahrain, and I was very much excited that I've got market for our farmers. Now I want to engage them into onion farming and ship out as a crazy business. We talked and reached the point of now the prices. This client surprised us that he wanted the produce to get to Bahrain at 40 shillings per kilo. 40 shillings per kilo. And he gave us statistics. In Lebanon, in USA, in Morocco, we are getting it at 38 shillings per kilo. That is 3,800 USD per ton. Now look at the cost of inputs in Kenya. For you to produce a kilo of onion in Kenya, under normal and under stable conditions, you'll use 25 shillings per kilo. If you forgo other things, maybe you can go back even up to 18 shillings per kilo. Now, this is a farmer who has produced a kilo of onion at 25 shillings. He has to make a profit. Then we also have a middleman, the dreaded broker, who is also there, who will make sure that the produce gets to you as an exporter at 40 shillings. As an exporter, I have to add other things like packaging, that is pack house level, those details of the logistics. Then you add sea freight, which is almost 7,000 USD per 40-foot container. That means that particular produce can only get to him at maybe 60 or 70 per kilo. But here he wants it at 40 shillings per kilo. So we look at the policies around the inputs, farming inputs, pesticides. You look at fertilizer and other aspects which are very costly, and therefore we have to go back, and the government has to understand that for agribusiness or for agriculture to remain the backbone of our economy. So subsidy is required. We produce enough for the export and even for our own consumption.
Okay.
Yes, Wekesa.
Okay, so I'll come back to you, Wekesa, but I want maybe that's I want us to move, but maybe let's get Dennis ask the question about markets. I understand Dennis.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is some echo.
Just continue. It's fine. It's not so bad.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
The topic today is good, and Abok seems to have Abok seems to have a forest of understanding about farming and agribusiness. But we need to domesticate this idea, bring it home, that a farmer in the village can exactly comprehend what Abok means. Because the problem that we have in farming is that we are dealing with perishables. And when we are dealing with perishables, we do have a lot of spoilages or food that goes bad even before it gets to the market. Or even at the point that the food gets to the market, a lot of food or a lot of farm produce get spoiled. So for the export market, having farm products from village all the way to branding, packaging until they are exported, if we do not have proper storage facilities, maybe that may not be possible. And I want to think that could be a challenge that most Kenyan farmers are faced with at the moment. So I want him to address the issue of storage, as it affects most Kenyan farmers. And of course, there is you talked of forming cooperative society or groups from village level. So how can we domesticate this? Like in my village, how can I domesticate this to benefit people in my village? So those two are the ones that I want to ask.
Good. Abok. Abok, can you unmute your mic, please? Abok, unmute your mic. Okay.
Yeah, Dennis Oseko, thank you so much. I had a classmate in high school called Dennis Oseko, but I've looked at your physique and I've seen you are different. Yeah, let me just try to look at your two issues. Number one is the perishability of agricultural products, and maybe localization of our conversation. I think when I was starting, I started by saying that we are concentrating locally and outside of the borders. That means even if you bring avocados today, Mr. Oseko, I would want to imagine you come from Kisii. We will not take everything that you brought. That means we must have some rejects, and these rejects are not bad. It's only that they don't meet the specific requirements of that market. So we take them to the local market. Now, again, I said that one cardinal rule that we were introduced to is that when you want to start farming, is Oseko still around?
I think he has some issues with network. Oseko, you can come. You can continue.
Okay, let me just continue. Yeah, as I said, when one cardinal rule is when you want to start farming, produce something that you can consume and your neighbor can consume. That means you will not have a problem with selling it. And what the narrative that we should be driving to, even to that village farmer, is that produce for your locality. Don't produce for Nairobi market. let me just go regional. If you take a whole Nyanza region, that is Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, and Migori, look at the produce that we are consuming. For example, eggs, where do they come from? They either come from Uganda and even all the way from South Africa. Where do we get cabbages coming from? Where do we get sukuma wiki coming from? Where do we get tomatoes coming from? Tomatoes come from Transmara, Narok, and all those regions. So as a farmer, maybe in Kisii region, your focus market should not be Nairobi, but should be maybe Oyugis, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, and even Siaya. In 2016, when I was working with that organization, we had farmers in Siaya, and their produce were not being brought to Nairobi because we could not produce enough for that particular market. The issue of storage may not arise at the village level because one very challenging factor is the issue of rain-fed farming. We want to produce when everyone else is producing. To address this particular issue, we may go to irrigation agriculture, where we can produce even at a time when nobody else is producing, so that we can target a specific market in a specific season, what is called market scheming, so that we produce that enough, or we produce what our market can consume. But to address that, there is a model that we are still trying to work with, or we are still trying to look for partners to assist us take it down to the village level, where we have community supported farming. When we have community supported farming, it more or less, it can either operate under cooperative, or it can either operate under what is called the super farmer, so that the super farmer will be consolidating produce and picking produce from all other smallholder farmers under him. And this super farmer will be the one having the storage facilities before the produce is collected for a particular market. But as it is now, that will still remain to be a challenge, because we depend on rain-fed farming, and we don't have these models that can group several farmers together, so that even if now investment of such magnitude are required, you don't invest on individual farmer, but you invest on groups of farmers. What was his second question? I don't know. I missed it.
Yeah, he's saying a very nice explanation, but value addition is necessary for farm produce to attract better pay. Now, he is talking about value addition. Now, maybe I can rephrase also for him. Like he was saying, if I am in Kisii and I'm a farmer, now for him, how can they form a cooperative? Can he form a cooperative? He has a bigger farm and then consolidate other farmers, or how is that process? Or you, as the person who links them with the market, you are actually the one that comes and puts them together.
Yeah, we have to understand that cooperatives have also been formed, and they have also been formed with different intentions, and therefore you must earn the trust of a farmer first. And earning the trust of a farmer is start by buying what this farmer is struggling with before you can tell him that we need to form a cooperative so that you can find your market for your produce. If this person is struggling maybe with excess of, say, tomatoes, start by buying that. Now, for us, what we come up with are the guidelines. This is how to go about it when you want to form a cooperative. But we can also bring in that trust issue by buying what the farmer is struggling with, so that you can start from somewhere. These people bought from me and they have paid me, and you can actually see that they mean well for us. Otherwise, cooperatives have been used as briefcase for individuals, and we have seen what they have done. What needs to be done is proper sensitization and what you want to produce and how you want to produce and for who. Now, this who is where we come in. You are producing for us, and we tell you right before you start, these are the cost, this is the price, and these are the margins that are involved. So it is a whole process that even requires behavior change and so many other things.
Right. Maybe the last one, maybe that market, before we move to logistics and also linkage now. If this farmer is in Kisii and they want to start farming, so they need to get, maybe they need to contact you, you go and do some survey on what they want to farm, you do some soil testing, all that. That's your message.
Yeah, contract is like those who have done a wedding. You'll be sent to the hospital to get HIV certificate, something like that. You have to get tested. So we have to get to know what is in the soil, and from there now we shall come up with a work plan with all the implementation strategies around it. But the basic level is, do you have water? Have you done soil testing? Then from there now, out of the soil testing analysis report, we shall be in a position to know this particular soil can support the following number of crops. And therefore, these are the ones we can engage on. And for this particular one, these are the costs in terms of land preparation, cultural practices. Now you go to weeding, chemicals, that is crop protection, crop nutrition, harvesting and post-harvest handling, and then now market. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So maybe we can move. I hope.
Maybe to add something, because I find you may close it. International market is not that all rosy. There are certain risks that are there, and therefore anybody who may think that exporters are getting more money. These exporters have also lost money to unscrupulous traders in these particular markets. And therefore, you may be excited, maybe someone has given you a contact this plant and attack maybe a container of avocado. It's never that way. You need to do your due diligence, and due diligence here requires that you become a member of both local and international associations, so that you get assisted before you lose 3 to 4 million in a container. So it's not all sundry. There are certain risks that are also there. So when someone is interested in this, there are certain steps that maybe we may not discuss in this forum, but they are very important that you get to understand where the culture of the people you want to engage. When you want to send to Middle East, you have to know that there is infiltration of Pakistan traders who are there, who are not very honest, and therefore you can lose a lot. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. So maybe let's move now to.
Yeah. Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah.
There's a concept that I think I would like Abok to talk about. It is, to me, it's the most critical of all the things.
Okay.
I tried doing some poultry farming, and it was for production of eggs. Now, one thing I learned is that I could not keep up with the demand of the market because I was in full-time employment, but I also wanted to perfectly do the job in the farm. And the market that I was targeting was in Western Kenya, where I come from. So what I realized is that when people knew that I was producing eggs, I could only supply to 2 people per week. So they actually were willing to pay in advance, so that all the production of the whole week, they come for it. Yeah, at the end of the week once. Yeah, and there is therefore that issue that as much as we're talking about the market, the truth is that how committed are we when we commit to starting to produce? Because most people who talk about there is no market, also they don't have the commitment to meet that market demand. But I want to hear from Abok two things. One, before you start producing for whichever market, and in this case, I'm thinking of not export market, I'm just thinking of the nearest local market. Tell us about market research and understanding the market. That before I start production, what do I need to understand? Is it the good stories I hear people about talk about? Is it the fact that I was searching for this produce and I missed it, so I think everybody is searching for it? Or how do you go about market research in a for the small scale people, for the people who have an acre, half an acre, and they have 100,000, 300,000, 50,000, 20,000 to start a venture in business, whether crop production or livestock production? So that is one. Two, there is something you mentioned about behavioral change. I want to hear from you. What is the key role of change of behavior in successful agribusiness or successful business in agriculture? Whether you are doing that purely for production to consume enough, so that if I'm doing for consumption, once I've produced my home for that year, I know if I produce this year, the entire year we will not be buying food, we have it. Or if it is for market where we want to sell, then I am sure that I will meet the market and I will sell and I will get profit. So the role of behavioral change, because I find that maybe those are two key things. Change of behavior is one of those things I want to hear you address.
Abok, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you, Alphonse. You've talked about your own experience in farming, and you are doing quite well. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe your salary was increased, so you didn't see the need of continuing. But one key thing that you need, someone who has got the category of capital you've spoken about. If your heart is in farming, then my key advice tonight would be start small as you study your market. And starting small here, you don't need to start with 300 chicken or 300 layers, but you can start even with 50 so that you understand where is your market before you can produce in mass that you can even get stuck with them. So in market research, you'd want also to look at this venture that I want to get into. Where are my raw materials in terms of maybe inputs, like when in your case you are doing chicken farming? Where were you buying the animal feeds? Who was your vet? How much was he charging you? So that at the end of the day, you remain competitive, even with this particular product that we are saying is coming all the way from South Africa. Maybe in South Africa, all these costs are very, very minimal. So it starts with the key inputs that you need for this particular project. Start doing research based on these key inputs that will make your particular project to succeed. Because I believe everything lie in the key inputs. When your chicken are not fed, they will never give you eggs. When they are not well taken care of in terms of vaccines, in terms of administering vaccines and even hygiene, you will never have them in the first place. So those are some of the key factors I would want to think somebody should look at. Market is the end game, is the end product here. But before you get to market, you need to bring that outside in approach. These products that I'm going to compete with, what are the background factors that have made them even to reach my village, yet they have been produced miles away. The other thing would be, what kind of market do you want to target? Do you want to target a general market or a specific market? And when you are targeting a specific market, it means you may want to develop a product history so that maybe you sell only to hospitals or to sell to schools or sell to whichever market that you'll have agreed with in your particular research. Number two, you've asked about the role of behavior change in agriculture. I would want to talk about it in the sense that what is our perception about agriculture? When we were growing up, agriculture has always been associated with either old people or old mama carrying firewood and hanging a hoe on the shoulders and a kid at the back with bare foot. This is the image that we have made to believe that this is how agriculture is. And when you even read stories from the magazines or newspapers or even from the internet, they are very beautiful stories. But the connection between these beautiful stories and the perception we have had about farming all our life, it has to take time. We have to change in terms of our behaviors, even to view farming as a business. Why do you want to take a loan to open an M-Pesa or to open maybe a kinyozi or saloon or gas business or something? Yet you have acres of land back at home which you can use and employ the current information and knowledge that is there to convert this into a business. And therefore it goes back to you and I. What is our perception about farming? What is our view about agribusiness? Some would think maybe agribusiness is you get into the farm today and tomorrow you harvest and drive that sleek car that you've seen somebody else is driving in the name of farming. We have to understand it from the basic level that it is a business just like any other with all the associated risks, and only the person who takes the largest part of the risk will be successful at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for addressing that. Maybe now we can address maybe some part of production when it comes to fruits and vegetables, but mainly like you are talking about fruits. Now, the team, please ask questions on production. We can start with Kesa, to Alphonse, and any other person who wants to join to ask that.
Yeah. First, Patrick, we were not getting you clearly. I think Abok was struggling to hear you just like myself.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm saying we can move. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying we can move to production. Maybe we can ask questions in that of production, right from how we produce products, get to the middle people, and then we can sell. Of course, we have addressed the market. Maybe now we can hear about production, the various important aspects that are need to be put in place when it comes to production. However, we can start with you, then we go to Alphonse.
Yeah, in production, I've seen quite a number of farmers who are into business are not much informed. They use what we call the sheep mentality. We have been told that there is a market in China for avocados, and everybody goes into avocado without even knowing the risks and the sustainability of the market. So everybody produces the avocado. Then all of a sudden, even they realize that the market maybe cannot sustain because everybody went into production of avocado without due diligence, maybe being advised that this is what is needed to be done, and it can only accommodate maybe this kind of quantity in per season. So how do we address that? Because that's the background we are coming from. people do farming based on some of the scanty knowledge that are given. So in terms of earning, indeed, it's not sustainable. Or you find that a farmer wants to do a farming business in order to support his income, but because of the dynamics of the market, by the time he goes to you plant, the crop grows, and up to the time of harvest and then sell. There are a few dynamics that happens even that affect the market environment. So how do we help the farmer to sustain production in the changing market environment? And it's like an insurance of what he's doing, because you cannot invest in something and all of a sudden the market dynamics now affects the farmers and they are not able to get what they have invested in. They completely, and most of the farmers give up because of either there is the drop in price, either there is a change in the market dynamics, and so most of them give up on the way, and they think like farming is not a sustainable business. So most of them just want to do it for consumption. Then another aspect that kills farmers. Actually, most farmers are very poor. And why? Because they do all the donkey work. Like you just gave us an example of if I want to sell avocado and a farmer is giving me at 25, and I am selling it as a middleman, I'm sitting at 40. You realize that middlemen even get much more than those who are producing. And I've seen even most people who opt, they say, I would rather be a middleman person than a producer, because at the end of the day, I will invest much of my time, but my returns are very minimal. But middlemen people, they only need to know the market and the producer, and they are there making their huge sums of money. So how do we address that?
Abok, you can proceed.
Okay, let me start with the last question, which is about middlemen. And middlemen in Kiswahili ni watu wa kuogopa. If you are a farmer, you'll be scared of a middleman. But that is not to mean that they are not useful in the supply chain. They are very useful. They have the tactics that they are using, and because they have been there long enough, they know exactly what to say and how to say it so that the farmer can give in even to those low or ridiculous prices that they are giving. Number one, the solution to this, I would give you an example. Right now, if you go with a truck full of maybe potatoes or onions to Marikiti market, and you don't contract a middleman or a broker to sell it on your behalf, you can even spend 3 to 4 days in that market. You'll be frustrated. You'll just say, sell it at a price that you feel like, give me that money, I go back to the farm, and I'll never come back again. They call farmers, hiyo gari ni ya mkulima, kwa hivyo wacha ajiuzie mwenyewe. So it's like you are marked, and it will never be sold in that particular market. Now, you have said that middlemen make more money than farmers. That is very true by all laws. Very, very true. Because as we move through the supply chain, the value of the commodity increases. And the middleman has nothing like a cost of production. He will only add transportation cost only and a margin. This person is way too high, way above the farmer in terms of the incomes that they are making. The government can address this issue of middlemen by, number one, regulating the prices of the produce at the farm level. Number two, regulating the packaging. And number three, registering the brokers or the middlemen so that they are also operating under a certain body. But as we look at things now, those are, I can call it a mirage. It's practically impossible to come up with such. I've seen several county governments regulating, especially potatoes, where instead of having that, they call it jumbo package, where you have a gunia, 2 gunias joined together to form one, and the price is almost the same as one. Right now, you cannot carry more than 50 kgs of that, and the price is always within a certain range. But we are still far from enriching the farmer who has toiled for 3-4 months waiting for the produce to be ready, for just a broker to come in within a day and make a kill out of that. And therefore, number one way, I would still go back to the issue of coming together as a cooperative, coming together as a group of farmers. With this, they'll be able to access markets, because when I have 20 bags, the other one has 50 bags, we can hire a truck and take us to a specific market. For example, hotels, they don't engage you if they don't see the consistency in quality and consistency in quantity. And therefore, if I go there as a Abok, I'll not be able to be given that particular contract. But if I go there as a cooperative or as a group, then we'll be able even to illustrate to them that in this group we are 50 of us, and we are not producing at the same time, and therefore we are guaranteeing you quantity as well as quality. So give us this particular contract. It is possible. When I was selling tomatoes, when I upgraded from mukokotenis to now having a specific spot, I got such orders because I was able to illustrate that we have 12 greenhouses and we are planting them in batches. And therefore, be assured that in the period of the next 8 months, you will be getting produce from us, and the prices will be this constant. Buyers want something like that. So coming together, having those cooperatives is number one way of curtailing the middlemen. Because if you have direct market, middleman will not come in between. Number two, this is to address your first question, where you talk about sheep mentality, yenye wakifukuzwa wanaenda pande moja wote. To connect this with the middlemen, you'll realize that we are producing because we are able to produce. In fact, production in Kenya has never been a problem. Today, if I give you a very nice idea, all of you will be back with money to go and start farming. So it's never technical, nor it's never capital. The issue is how to match production with the market dynamics. When you go to the farm without knowing where you will sell at or whom you will sell to, then you are inviting the broker to come in to take care of the situation. This is how they look at it, for example. When they come and find you with tomatoes that are maybe all right, they start asking you absurd question. Hii umetoa, hii ni mbegu gani ulipanda? Yeah, hii hata sahi ni kama itakikani kwa soko. Such things. But if you grow it, knowing exactly in terms of variety, in terms of where you are going to sell it, broker may have very limited influence on the prices of the products that you are producing. So it has to start from the market, going backwards. Now, for us not to flood a specific market, for us not to move like a sheep the way you have described, a lot of market research is needed. I went to one farm just the other week, and these people were telling me that we are going to sell you one fruit at 30 shillings, avocado fruit at 30 shillings, because we know you guys are selling 1 kilo at 1,000. Yeah, where did they get even this information? Yeah, it has never been that way. So a lot of publicity, a lot of sensitization is needed, especially when a particular value chain is being introduced, even for the uptake of by the farmers. For example, avocado farming. It's the new frontier. They call it the golden fruit. It's a new frontier that is marred with a lot of confusion and a lot of inaccuracy. So publicity and sensitization is needed, even to make farmers aware that you don't need to produce for this particular this product in anticipation that market will open up or so many things will work or towards or on your favor. It's never that way. So in solution to that, I'm talking about sensitization, publicity, training of farmers. Government should be deliberate about farming. It should never be a reactive to a food insecurity incident.
Good. Thank you very much. Wekesa, I want to move. So maybe I want Alphonse to weigh in terms of production too.
Yeah, I want to address the very fundamental issue around production, and that is particularly for entrepreneurs, people who want to start business in agriculture and farming. So my interest at this point will be the issue to do with costings and pricing. And I'm interested in how do we come up with unit cost and unit price if we were to make it a venture, given that production process takes a while, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then the process of selling or the process of disposal to the market takes a shorter time. And so how do we know that this is the unit price of getting one tomato, which took us 4 months to start harvesting, or a maize cob, which took us 4 or 5 or 6 months? So at the farm economics level, if I want to do farming as a business, I must understand the business sense. So the issue of costing is key to me. And how do I come around? How do the new venture, somebody want to enter into this business, come around it? And in addition to that, so just you can add the two. How is that related? How should somebody do what you call farm planning? Yeah. So start with the economics and then go to farm planning. And why should we do farm planning?
Okay. Yes, I want to start by saying that it is only in farming where other professionals think they are experts. It is only in farming where we disregard all the rules, all the procedures, all the principles of production and get into it without even knowing. You as a labor consultant, where I sit as an agribusiness person, I wouldn't want to imagine to come into your field and start offering services to your field. I cannot go to a labor ward and offer midwifery services. have to go through a particular training. That means that we have ignored the basic things that are required or that we need to look at in farming. And that is where the experts and professionals are coming in. You cannot have a record of, I just started by saying that for us in Kenya to produce 1 kilo of onion, ideally it should be 13 shillings per kilo. But because of the cost of the inputs, we are doing it at 25 shillings. How do you get this information as a farmer or as somebody who would want to get into this venture? You can only get this information from people like Abok and others in the industry, professionals in the industry who have got the knowledge, the data, the statistics to guide you on this. All these things are here. Let me just take even an example of avocado, just one avocado seedling. When you buy it from certified research centers, maybe Calro, you'll buy it at 150 shillings or even 100 shillings, depending on the season they are in. That is the basic, that is a factor that a cost that you cannot go below. Now you add other things like labor cost at the farm, the cost of farm manure, the cost of if you are doing irrigation, water cost, etc. So that you know, at the end of the day, my fruit, my tomato fruit, whatever it is, onion, I'm doing it at this minimum level. But because we have disregarded the rules of the game in farming, we want all of us to be experts and all of us to be professionals. And we get there, burn our fingers, and then we start tarnishing the name of agriculture. That nilijaribu nikaungua, unalima, wacha tu. Involve people who have been there. Just like when your kid is sick, you take him or her to the doctor. You don't start treating her. The same way to plants, they are also living things. There are economics that are involved towards producing a kilo of fruit in an acre, 2 acres. You can do that even up to 10 acres. So how to go about it is engage experts. The issue of farm planning here, I don't know whether you are talking about the physical planning and layout of the farm, or you are talking about the production schedule. But let me just imagine you are talking about the two. The physical planning, it's basically done for the purposes of proper utilization of water resources that you have. When you plan your farm very well, then it means even in terms of controls of irrigation and everything else, you will be in a position to do it even in blocks when you do proper planning. In terms of production planning or production schedule, when you engage a market does not want your produce at a go. They want your produce over a period of time. And that means you want to produce for them continuously. If you have 5 acres, then you don't need to do a whole 5 acres. You can plan and schedule your farm in terms of acres, maybe the first acre, the 2 acres, and you do it maybe periodically after every 2 weeks or after every 1 month. You plant as you proceed. The need to do this is that it makes your market to have that trust that you are able to be consistent in quantity. And I also want to believe that you're also consistent in quality.
All right. Thank you very much, Abok, for that. So maybe, Alphonse, if you are satisfied, I'll want to move forward from that maybe topic of production. Now, I think tonight we have addressed that topic well, but I want to know, maybe Abok, can you tell us where do you draw your inspiration? And then I'll come to the team, maybe to offer their last remarks, and then we'll maybe close our tonight's session.
Before I go to where I draw it, I want to talk about the last aspect of the triangle, which was logistics. And I just want to take a minute or so, maybe just to address it. Logistically, produce can never leave your farm if you don't have the connection of the farm, logistics, and the market. And therefore, we have the issue of transport and communication, a very key role in facilitating agriculture or facilitating farming. Right now, we are talking about floods all over. Some roads have been cut. You've seen the prices of certain commodities rising because the produce can never get into the market. We have also seen the effects of COVID-19 to agriculture and agribusiness. I expected that to be a question from one of them, but I will try to talk about it. So when you are doing production, you have to be aware of how am I going to take my produce to the market. Even if you don't have any means, you must think about it. You must think about the means, you must think about the roads, and you must think about the distance from where you are to the market. These are certain factors that will either make your product cheap or make your product expensive. Most people do not buy far from get produce closer to Nairobi, because close proximity to the market means that their margin is more. But when your farm is located, for example, in Standkisha village in Vihiga, I don't know whether in Kakamega, then you take the cost of production, all these things, you'll buy it very, very cheaply down there. Then you bring it here and make your margin to be a beautiful one. If you buy it from Isinya here, your transportation cost is less, but you buy it at a high cost. So logistically, you need also to think, how am I going to move it from the farm? What are the road networks? What are the government regulations? Maybe the checkpoints in terms of sales payments, all that, so that you know how to cost your product at the end of the day. Some people think that once you leave the market, the farm, you go straight to the market. When you get to the market, you are told you need to have this payment before you get into the market. You need to pay this young man. You need to pay the broker. You need to pay this. At the end of the day, you don't have anything. You come back empty-handed, just because you never thought of these issues when you were starting.
Right, good.
Now, maybe Patrick, before we go to our parting shots, first, I think Abok has given us a wealth of information, direction, and confidence in agriculture and agribusiness as a whole. So thank you, Abok. But there is these people who also, you talked about agriculture being cool or not being cool. Now, I am interested in people who invest, or rather become entrepreneurs in other auxiliary services or related services to agriculture, which may not necessarily be actual farming. And I want to give an example so that I get your thought. There are people, for example, in the flower business who decides that their job is to package the flowers that are literally rejects in our country here. And then instead of them being exported, they buy them, they come make the vessels, they're very good, and they sell them next to a hospital. And you just, when you're going to see a sick person, you pass by and you buy at a specific price. And so in that specific type of business, you find that there are people who are now specializing in making those vessels, that platform that flower will be put on. And there's those people who are interested just to bring that flower here, and there's that one now who sells it. And there's also another example I want to give. You'll discover, and this one is a practical one. I've seen it in practice as well. You know, people are doing dairy farming. They're interested, but they don't know where to learn it from. So you decide that you will link these people with dairy farmers in Israel. But you yourself, your business is to link them. So you don't own a farm, a dairy farm. But then you collect these dairy farmers who can raise money in a period of time, a month, 3 or 7, to take to Israel. Then you don't own a transport institution, so you don't own Kenya Airways. But then you talk to Kenya Airways to give you a package. So if you take 100 people, you go for free. Then you talk to accommodation guys the other side that if you bring them 100 guests, what is your take about this type of business? Because it's cool. It is cool, man. And I'm assuming it's an agribusiness. So let me hear it from you.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, in every core activity, there must be a support system. And the support systems will vary from one sector to another. Let me start with those who are in a flower industry and picking rejects. And I don't know you as Alphonse, whether you know that this is a pure rose that I need to give somebody, or this is a reject. That might be an answer for another day. But you find us going, especially city, it's called city market. There are a lot of flowers there. Those flowers are just rejects. They are not the grade 1 flowers. But where do we want to take them? Yeah, if we dispose them of, the farmer will go at a certain losses. I'll tell you, the other time I experienced something very strange, and that is what prompted me to tell Billion that I'll take him avocado, because there's this guy who is just hovering around the park house, and he has a very nice car, Probox, and he's telling you that this whole crate of avocados, I'm buying it at a very good price, and I was interested to know maybe 500 or so. And he just told me, I buy at 50 shillings a whole crate. And he goes and put them in a nice room where they can get ready for consumption and sell each at 10 shillings or so. So you look at that person, those are opportunists who are there, who are taking advantage of the raw or the surplus, or what we call rejects, whom we don't even know where to take them to. But for them, they have understood where to take them to. So they have invested somewhere in the form of market. So it's the knowledge that they have, which is working to their advantage. What you are talking about dairy farming, they call them agri-tours or something like that. And these are people who are neither experts or professionals in agribusiness. These are purely business people who have taken opportunity of their knowledge about where the farming is being done in a modern way, but they are now using it to their advantage. Well, I can tell you, most of these farmers who are taken for agritourism never implement those ideas back in Kenya. Because I'll tell you, in Kajiado alone, there's a farmer who has got over 10,000 acre piece of land. In Israel, there is no land. When you take this person to go and learn sophisticated farming techniques in Israel, when he comes back, he looks, even me, I would look at my 10,000 acre piece of land and the massive investment in terms of machinery and everything else to put so that my farm can be at the level of the one I saw in Israel. They never get any value for their money. But the guy who connected them is earning not just a free ticket, has also earned discounts from the airline, and even from the hotels, and even from the farms where he's taking them to. And he has also charged them something like administration fee or facilitation fee for that matter. So these are just opportunists who are there, and they are there everywhere. You go to sheria, unapata watu wamevaa koti refu wanakuambia unataka. They are everywhere. They don't belong anywhere, but they facilitate.
Yeah, I also had a question before we go to the parting shots. Mine will be concerning in the season we are in. How has COVID-19 affected the agribusiness? Because mostly you talked about you do most of your product you export them. So are you still classified under essential services and you are able to export your products, or it has been halted? And then I also want to ask about technology and agribusiness. And part of it is I wanted to ask the idea of GMO, genetically modified foods that most of our countries are producing and selling. Do you think they are part of the weakening of our health system, our immune system, and making us susceptible to many diseases, just including the COVID-19? I think, yeah, I think you can weigh.
All right, proceed.
Okay. The effect of COVID-19, yes, we are listed as essential service providers. And this is the speaker for our association. You can see, and you can see this name there, Benok, somewhere there. And now let me go to the effects. Number one, when we experience lockdown, whether you are offering essential service or not, part of your thoughts or how you view things is interrupted in one way or the other. So before people could come to realize that I am an essential service, a week or so had passed. So we have limited access to inputs. And when we have limited access to inputs, we talk of pesticides, we talk of seeds, and we talk of fertilizer. That means that either we are not going to have proper crop nutritional program in the farms, or we are going to have unscrupulous traders increasing their prices because of the lockdown. The ripple effect is that either we will not have enough harvest, or we will have enough produce, but produce at a higher cost. So those who are listening, we have to prepare ourselves for increase in the prices of the basic agricultural commodities in the coming days. Number two, you talk of the suppressed labor market. I'll tell you that our farming system is labor intensive. And when we have lockdowns like the ones we are having, it means that you'll either access labor at high cost or you'll never access it at all. That means we can have two effects, positive and negative. Positive in the sense that you'll be able to produce, but at a high cost. So yes, the produce will be there, but prices will be higher because labor supply is low. Maybe Alphonse will talk about that, but labor supply is low. very few people are available to work in farms. And the farms that are producing a lot are within the Nairobi metropolis, for example. Number two, because of restricted movement in and out of Nairobi, most people, I'll give you an example. In 2018, we used to have a farm down there in Kajiado, and we used to carry all the people who are going to work in the farm from Nairobi. Just like those who are doing Mujengo, you see them full of lorries, they go to the site. That is how it was done. But because of self-distancing, because of restriction in movement, this one can never happen. So we have to prepare ourselves for such a for the increase in the labor cost. Then also we have limited access to both local and international markets. People, even though they are classified as essential service providers, as I said, they were interrupted in one way or the other. When you see police clobbering people somewhere, and they are saying they have carried food stuff, you would fear and you will not go until you realize that things are normal. And therefore, in terms of local markets, we have had interrupted supply of the produce to the market, which has made the final consumer to suffer in terms of either lacking the produce or experiencing high prices that have never been seen. Internationally, we saw flights or countries closing their borders, and that means you cannot. We at the initial stages, no produce could leave the country, or if there was, then the flight cost, freight rates were so high. Just like, an example is Dubai, which is usually 0.98 USD per kilo. It rose up to 3.5 per kilo. That makes the produce to be very expensive even to the buyer. So instead of buying volumes, they'll just buy limited amount of produce. Again, in terms of international markets, again, COVID has affected everyone. People fear for their health more than what they consume. When this thing was announced, I think most of us went to supermarkets to buy a lot of things. So during that period, they bought a lot of things, and there was a slumber in the market. Nobody was buying anything because of the fear of being contaminated and because of the surplus they have in their stock. So it has really affected business. As we were really affected, I don't want to mention it here.
All right. Thank you very much.
Something I asked on GMO, you have not responded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. GMO. What you mean by GMO is genetically modified organism. Okay. So when you talk of genetics, which has been modified, it's modified by what? Yeah. I don't want to dwell so much on this because I started by putting a disclaimer. I am not agronomist and I'm not a food technologist, but I would want to use a general knowledge that this has really affected our general health. Look at, if you go to the market, I don't know whether you have those Israeli oranges, the one that is orange. What we have in Kenya are not oranges because the color should be orange. You have to check how they are being produced. You look at, not even those ones, look at in Kenya today, when you talk of, say, broiler chicken, yeah, why is it that after 42 days, it's ready for consumption? Yeah. What makes it a mature chicken just in 6 weeks' time? Look at even what we call tissue culture, bananas, or grafted, all these things. This thing is here with us. And the other day I was just discussing with my wife about African culture and westernization of the African culture. One is superior than the other, and we tend to think that it is the best way to do things. And therefore, wanawekesa, just plan with your life that if you live more than 70 years is a bonus, but its GMOs are not going anywhere.
Okay. All right, that's a good. All right, so that's a good answer. So but I want us to move maybe to our parting shots. But before we move to that, maybe I want you, Abok, maybe to spend some time. Just tell us, you are just 35 years old, so you are just a verge of leaving. Um, I was being explained this by Alphonse the other day. There's a difference between young and youth. So you are at a verge of leaving youth bracket.
Yeah.
Just tell us, and it seems maybe you have been doing fine in the journey of your life. So, how has been your inspiration? Where did you draw your inspiration, and how your journey has been? And then we come to the parting shot, and then we'll give you your last remarks.
Yeah. You are saying I'm just 35. Yes, I'm 35. And I'm actually leaving leaving that bracket where affirmative actions you can be a beneficiary. Right now, from 30th of November, I'll be out of that bracket. And that means I'll be on my own. You cannot access youth fund, you cannot access women fund because you are not a lady, and there is no men fund. So, so we are there for, yeah. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to be. I liked the way they used to march for Moi during national celebrations. So I wanted to be a soldier. But when I went to high school, it quickly changed. So I wanted to be an accountant because accountants are counting money. And in Form 2, I didn't have a good experience with the business studies teacher. So I didn't have enough interest to allow me to pursue accountancy. So along the way, all along, I've always wanted something practical. In other words, if I sit here, if I don't count money right, then the result is always wrong. If I'm accosted by an enemy, then I'll either have to shoot or he has to shoot. So I've always wanted practical things. And along the way, I developed the interest and started pursuing agribusiness. Now, I want to do something with, I've always wanted to do something with my community, and that is why I raised the issue of community-supported agriculture, where you empower community using what they know and what they have been using. Because if I start introducing something new to these people, they may not be in a position to take it up. They will always go back to the farm. And therefore, all the time I like the aspects of the training, farmers getting the results. Even though they call you back that I have this enough produce, sometimes you may not have market, but you feel like what you did has borne some fruit. And therefore, that is part of where I get my motivation and my inspiration. But majority of it is I get it from the background. I was raised in a very humble background. I was raised in a family of 12. Actually, I'm the second last born, and I just wanted to make a difference, even in my life, and I never wanted to be like a I wanted to change my life at the end of the day. But I like a book that I read. It's written by Dr. Walter Staples. It's talking about In Search of Your True Self. This is a book that I read long in the year 2007, 2008. And it talks about in order for you to be successful, you need to give. You need to have. You need to support people. And again, the journey starts with you. The moment you know who you are, the moment you know who yourself is, then you'll be able to be in a position to change your narrative. And that is basically where I get a lot of inspiration. I still have where I wrote the notes. I don't know where I gave the person I gave the book. He just disappeared to Tanzania. So I have the excerpts here that I always read whenever I want, whenever I think I'm losing direction. So basically, I get my inspiration from supporting my community, and again, looking at the people under me. I want to change and to offer them the best in life.
Wow, amazing. So I'll want to, maybe now we can move to parting shots, and then lastly, when we come to Abok, he will address maybe in his last remarks about, is it the time for young people now to come to agribusiness? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I think I know Abok in many other ways. He has talked about agribusiness, but I also know he's a permanent and pensionable wedding chairman. Everybody who is planning for a wedding, we say call Abok because he's a very good organizer. And so if at all you have not done one, I'm already giving you a hint of what he does. He's actually a good guy, very sociable and easy to interact with. So I'm grateful, but today even I've learned more in terms of his career and profession. He has shed more light in terms of, you see, most of us just see agriculture and we see food and we don't see the details that happen behind the scene. But it also offers a great opportunity for young entrepreneurs who should not look agriculture from the traditional point of view, but look at it from the 21st century, the opportunities that are there globally. There are many young people who are on social media, networking with different people, but they don't understand that part of it can be how do you inculcate your agricultural knowledge to bring about income and to transform your livelihood. I've seen even people who work in the forest and come up with a flower and they think this is a very beautiful. The other day I was watching it was on the wall of I think the VC of Nairobi. He had gone to part of Arboretum there and he saw a very beautiful flower and he took a picture and people were excited about it. What I'm saying is if we are observant and just look around us, what is happening, there are opportunities that lies within us and around us in agricultural sector and in any other sector that if we nurture them well, can transform our livelihood. And Abok has just been one of the testament that it can work and it's possible for you. It has worked for him, and also if you get aligned to the right. He talked about having the right people in your life having the right knowledge and mindset. Leaders are always readers. You need to read the right books, get the right knowledge, and it will spur your success. Otherwise, have a wonderful night.
Wow, great.
Thank you.
It's good that you clarified about the wedding chairman.
And I'm always his MC when he's doing that.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think Abok, you have done well in the show today, and we are grateful for your time, expertise, knowledge, and all that you have offered. It's the last time I talked about this topic, I think, to the public a long time ago in another show, and I'm happy that we are having this. And maybe just a quick one: have you ever considered writing online to just empower the people? Just respond to that, and then I proceed briefly.
I sometimes write periodically. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll find maybe the last time I posted something maybe of good assistance to the public was like 2 months ago. So it's
but if you have a schedule, or if you to be assisted to have a schedule, are you able to do it? Let's say once a week.
Yeah, that one I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe to respond further to that, just before COVID, we were in the process of partnering with one of the mainstream media, just to offer content on agribusiness. I am not alone. I have people whom I'm working with. One of the areas which we considered very important is PR and communication. And we have a specific person who is doing that. But we have technical people who are providing information and what to be written. So yes, it's something that it's a challenge that I can take, but I write when the moods are okay, when I've made a profit or not.
Okay. We will engage further on that, but it's something you need to think about. And the other thing I also want just quickly, sorry, you lost me because of my internet, just disappeared from nowhere. Just a quick one again is the issue of as you speak to us and you talk to us to go to the community, do you have active community engagements? Either other people have invited you to support them, or you have initiated?
Okay. You are talking about community projects.
Yeah, agriculture related.
Let me take you back a bit. We are working with farmer groups, and like in the area of Bomet East, we have a group of farmers of 1,000 members. We started with this because we realized that they are the source of our raw materials, and therefore we needed to give them most of the time like free services. So we have started with that particular community. I have gone back to my village, and as at now, because we produce a lot of groundnuts, and we are doing also beans, we just want to use things that they know, or things that are familiar with them, to make them realize that agribusiness pays. It is no longer the subsistence farming that they have known. So yes, I started far from home, but I've gone back home. Then from there, after charity has begun from home, I'll be in a position now to go to different parts.
Okay, so let me not delve much. What I can assure you is that you will be back in this show and others that we are part of. And please, when we invite you, create time and come. It may not have profit in terms of Kenya shillings or dollars, or even euros and sterling pounds.
Yes.
But definitely it will have a benefit that might supersede that in one way or the other at some point, if not the same time.
Sure.
But so much, we are grateful. Thank you so much. I know after this we will connect and see how we can talk. I like talking, so the show usually confines me from within 2 hours. 2 hours is not enough for my introduction, so I can't talk much. Yeah, but that is it's nice. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. So higher, and I think this is the inspiration we need in our country. This show is specifically to people like you and others who are making a better part of this world. And this show is there to tell the young people that you are no longer young, you are the productive people. This show is there to encourage Kenyans that we may not have platforms in our mainstream media, but we will have platforms in our media that the world has created for us. And now this is the best way of using social media for us. And we are going to do more in this. So when you have been the show, invite others to be the show because we have the show daily. Asante sana.
Okay. Thank
you,
you
Patrick.
so
I'm done.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that, Alphonse. And good you clarified. We need him more in this show. Thank you. Now take it Abok. We need you to reassure the young people and actually to encourage them to do agribusiness.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick, and Alphonse and Wekesa, and I don't know where Oseko went to, but I hope it is well. Maybe you just bring the panelist back. I want to see all of you. Don't give me the limelight. Yeah, I want to be talking to you. Yeah, you've asked a very, very important question. That is it the time for young people to get into agribusiness? I would go back to definition of young people and looking at all. I don't want to quote every every act that has been there, but young people between the age of 15 to 18. In other words, from between that age, 15 to 35. That means we are talking about the youth. Very soon I'll not be a youth anymore. We need to understand that agribusiness, if done the best way, it is one of the ways to go, as we are staring at unemployment levels that are continually rising or continuously rising as we wake up. Farming is a business. I know young people want cozy things. They want things that are cool. And Alphonse used an example, which is really cool anyway, because if you tell someone, I'm in agribusiness, na kesho yake umepanda ndege, unaenda Israel, unaenda Holland, unaenda Denmark kuangalia mifugo, then it is cool. But that one is not making anyone justice. It's not doing anybody justice. Justice is between you and the soil and what comes out of that. You may not, and you should never think of farming as just a digging, but farming also involves value addition. I've just given you an example of producing groundnuts from our village. I don't want to produce so that I sell. I want to produce, and we add value at village level. Not that they are going to do them. They are going to learn it from my central point, so that they can see that these groundnuts that I've been doing since I was born, it can be value added, so that it gets a different market and it can stay longer. And now the issue of storage and everything else is solved. So young people should just find their place in agribusiness value chain. You may not want to soil your hands in farming, but you can find your space in the value chain. I'm looking at, for example, I like using the area I come from, where we are doing it just for subsistence. We are doing it, and it is everything. It is school fees, it is supper, it is breakfast, it is lunch, it is clothing, and it is everything. And if it is done in the best way, young people can really make money out of this. You don't need to do the contemporary things that people are doing. And that is where the innovation and the creativity is coming in. So that you don't just look at maize, but you look at maize in terms of flour. You look at maize in terms of making animal feeds. You look at maize in terms of something else. When you get into maize business, I can tell you there are endless cartels that you cannot break. As a young person, you will be frustrated. You just need to find a way of getting yourself into this value chain. It is a long value chain. And I'm very thankful that you brought me here so that next time we break agribusiness into several value chains so that we just don't talk about it generally, but we address a specific line with specific opportunities, with specific interventions, so that if Alphonse leaves this show, he leaves this place with information that I can do chicken farming in the most modern way, and these are my markets, etc., etc. Or I don't want to be in chicken farming, but I want to be making feed for chicken so that farmers can buy from me. If you come from Western region, Uganda gives us raw materials at a very affordable price. We can make animal feeds, and you'll still be within the agribusiness value chain. You'll have created employment, and you'll have created a revenue stream even for yourself. So I want to encourage young people that yes, it is possible to be in agribusiness, but it is not a get rich quick scheme. We have seen several schemes. I didn't tell you that I developed one where I was working, which was overtaken by commercial business people, and they ruined the whole thing. And the last one went down just the other day. I developed that in the year 2013, and we didn't have money, and therefore these people took it up, and you see where they have ended Kenyans, because they have always disregarded the expert advice or inputs in the process. It is not get rich quick. If you want to get rich, I don't know where that is, but the story of resilience, the story of patience is very, very important. Young people, farming is not just about developing apps and useless IT systems that are not going to help any farmer. At the level at which we are in as a country, we are not yet automated. If you are developing, for example, irrigation automated system, for who? And we don't even have irrigation system. So first, if we have to advance, then we have to look at how to harvest water or harness water resources that we have, then employ irrigation agriculture. And then now later on, when we don't even have water and we don't have land, then now we can go to those IT or those sophisticated systems. So I want to say that it is possible, and it is possible because we have done it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, my parting shot, I think that is partly what I wanted to address, but I want to also implore the government that where we are when all other areas of economy is stuck, agribusiness is the only way. I think we have seen that what is so important to human life is food and shelter currently. That is what is so important to human life. Any other thing that we are looking for auxiliary addition to food and shelter, and of course, good health. So a lot of attention need to be given to farming, to agriculture, because it is still the backbone of this economy. Number two, I want to implore other professionals in other fields that agribusiness is also a profession, even though it was introduced lately in the Kenyan's curriculum as a business and entrepreneurship. It is a profession, and if you are a doctor, if you are an accountant, if you are a nurse, or whoever you are, engage the services of a professional so that you get it right. Briefly, you cannot get into a labor ward if you are not a doctor, if you are not a nurse. Therefore, why do we go to farms if we are not? In fact, middle class in Kenya have made farming to look like a side hustle, that niko na shamba Isinya, si tuende huko tukikula nyama njiani. It's not their mainstream thing. But when we convert it to make it to be our mainstream thing, then these other things are only added additions to it. Then we shall make a change in our country. One last thing is our country is 80% arid and semi-arid. But what we need to understand is that crops or plants do not need rain. Plants need water. So you can plant anywhere as long as you have water. You don't need to have rain, but you need to have water. So now that Wekesa is back, Wekesa said that I am a wedding permanent and pensionable wedding chairman. He introduced me to this thing and left to Machakos. So I'm just following up on what he left me with. I've learned also in this that couples planning their wedding are the most the classic examples of faking humility. So I know it very, very well that I need also to lower myself when I'm serving them, because I'm dealing with fakeness during that time. I've learned a lot. One last thing is I just want to appreciate you, Patrick, but I want to appreciate my good friend Wekesa, because he's the one who has been bothering me. And in fact, I was to come earlier, but I disappeared. And because he's my friend, I wanted to maintain our relationship. So I started by appearing to the shows. Then now I said, let me satisfy Wekesa. And I maintain my image. Omwami, we are still together. I'm still the one you know. Thank you so much, Patrick. You've been a good host, and I believe this particular idea is going to create a very big change even in our community. Thank you so much, Alphonse. The first time I saw you you looked very, very serious when you were interrogating Harrison Mumia. And I kind of I looked at Alphonse and said, but this group has got very serious people. But Wekesa sometimes is very useless. So thank you so much. I'm very, very humble. I'll be very, very willing to come back again, even as a panelist or even as a guest. I don't charge. I won't charge. Alphonse, I'll not want to earn any dollar or shilling or euro on this. It's good to engage so that we bring a change. We cannot be talking about change if we cannot give it ourselves. It has to start with us. And the best thing that you can give in your life are those free things that are very essential in life. So thank you so much, gentlemen. It's good to interact with you. It's only Alphonse whom I don't have his phone contact. So maybe after that, my good useless friend will assist you with my contact. Thank you so much. Mbarikiwe sana.
Good. Thank you very much, Abok. I want to confirm I already shared your contact with Alphonse. Yeah, I've already shared with him. So now the network is built.
Okay.
Fantastic. So yeah, it has been really meaningful, deep.
Yeah, Abok.
Yes.
I wanted to say that I will discuss with Alphonse and Patrick so that you can be a frequent panelist.
Yeah, that will be one.
Frequent panelist.
I think I've said that. I'm very much available.
Continue. I've muted.
So anytime. Oh yeah, I'm very much available anytime that one is requested of me. I'll be very much available. I like seeing you. That's why I came all the way to Machakos to look at your ugly face. That is good.
And like I said, it's essential service, essential friendship. And by they say hi to the lovely, your lovely daughter. It's really good to see her. Say hi. Wonderful. Hi. Wonderful.
Hi.
Good. Amazing. So I want to end this conversation there. I don't want to add anything. Abok, you have really locked this conversation. It has really been deep, meaningful conversation, and we really loved it. So I want to mention also, I see Letins Ojong Besong. She wanted to join, and she's saying, I will be on some day. She's a great marketer in German. So Letis, we really want to have you on the show. Maybe you can join and bring your nuggets from German and how you are doing it. So thank you everyone who joined this conversation and everyone who joined them and especially asked questions. We really look forward to see you tomorrow. Everyone have a good night, and good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.
Nice to meet you.